top of the German, northern, southern, eastern, western Lord of the Rings morning. Petra Wille, I am so happy to talk to you. You're the one person that called me Galadriel. Nobody needs to know exactly why. It's probably because my ears are sticking out a little bit. And
because you're so beautiful.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Well, everyone, this is Petra Wille, the strongest product person that I've ever known, the wheeler, the conference organizer, the trainer. There's no way that you're not going to be a product leader after this episode. Petra, can you tell the people who you are in case they don't know you?
Thanks, Leah. So glad to be here today. Who am I? I'm a product leadership coach for most hours of my day. I'm working in one-on-one or group coaching settings with companies and individuals. I'm an author of Strong Product People, the book, and hopefully soon of another book that I may announce the next few weeks on communities of product practice. And then I'm co-organizing and running a conference in Hamburg, Germany for curious product practitioners with Arne Kittler, and the event is called Product at Heart.
That's really amazing. I think I have a notebook here where I usually note down my stuff, but like to note everything down that you have up, I think we need a bigger book. Let me introduce you back to the audience and also explain what your relevance is to me. Interestingly, I've managed a couple of product managers in my life, and I also had at some point the idea, hey, you know what? I need to have a product skill wheel, like how to grow other product managers. And let's see what's out there in the market. Some other things came up, and then I heard about you, and I think you were also on a podcast that I heard. And at some point, I was just like, oh my Lord, she's actually quite good at this. I'm not even going to try. So I'm actually using your material, and I'm using some other materials as well. But like you and the other person, which I'm not going to name right now, are the only people that made it into my leadership coaching manifesto or framework in that sense. And the one thing that you do really, really well is that you're a very operational specific person. You're not someone that sells a vision from like, how does it look over there? You're always like in the here and now. And this is something that I wildly recommend for everyone to look into. You're really, really amazing. And then we connected at some point as well, because we found out that we both love complaining about things. And
indeed,
that is maybe the very first topic that we can talk about. Do you remember what we actually complained about the first time?
I don't know what our first interaction was, but what we complained about a lot in the last few months is conferences. That inviting us to speak, for example, because to some extent COVID killed conferences and maybe had an impact on their business model and stuff like this. So they often come knock our doors and ask if we could travel around the globe for free, talking at the events for free. And that's, I think, what we complained about a lot the last few months, I'd say.
Yeah.
What was our first one? Do you recall what was our first complaint?
That's exactly what it was. And I think, I don't recall exactly, like we landed in the same Slack at some point, but I think the interesting thing is maybe also for people who are listening in, it sounds like a rich people problem. But for us, you're also one of those that always firmly believed in, no, I'm going to charge for my stuff. And that's just what it is, because we're sometimes being treated as, no, the exposure that you get at these events should be payment enough. And then you have to pay for the flight, and then you have to pay for the hotel, and then you have to pay everything as well. And then why don't you do this, and why don't you do that on the top? And
I think we do share a lot with the community if it's free community events, right? So that's actually where the border lies for me. So if it's a product tank or any other meetup and it's a free thing, which is kind of helping other people to get better in what they do in their product practice, then I'm happily jumping on that if my calendar allows, but not for paid events where people have to pay 800 euros or US dollar to participate. So then I'm the one asking for a fee.
I don't know whether people really realize that a lot of these events that are paid, the speakers are actually standing on the stage for free. Absolutely for free. And a lot of them do. And I think one of the amazing things is that I think you're like me. You're getting pissed off about something long enough and then you actually do it yourself. So
to some extent.
So can you tell us a little bit what you're going to do and what is so different about it? Because I would love to hear about this.
With the conference that we're about to run in June. Yeah, so basically we haven't started at our own. Mind the Product approached us 7 years ago because they had this idea of, hey, we have all the product tanks and we have our big flagship product conferences, but maybe we can do something more local. And we called the concept MTP Engage back at the time. And they started to run an event in Hamburg with the German community, and Arne and I were the ones curating and organizing that. And they did a test balloon in Manchester to see how that is actually going. And ever since, we run our annual product management conference, which was a 300 people event in the first year. And then at some point, we added more attendees, obviously, and then more event formats like workshops and the leadership forum and all these kind of things. And last year we decided to make this an indie event because Pendo acquired Mind the Product, and that changed some of the, I would say, the preconditions. And at some point we had to decide, are we either never going to do this again, or are we putting our own money, a lot of our time and a lot of love towards that and run it ourselves? And that's what we decided. Basically, so for example, Teresa Torres cheered me on a lot, and she said, like, we really need these independent conference events where curation is not in the hands of the software companies and stuff like that. So that was actually, one of the thoughts that pushed us into the direction of actually doing it again. And therefore we run a leadership forum for 60 product leads, already sold out, sorry, and some workshops already sold out, sorry. But we still have tickets left for the main event, the conference, where we hopefully will welcome 650 product people from all over the globe, mainly from Europe, and listen to talks from Teresa Torres and John Cutler and Jeff Gotthelf and many, many other amazing product people.
I think this is quite amazing because maybe people are thinking like, yeah, but why do I care? Why these two are now complaining about conferences, like, and then whether they're getting paid or not. I think it's interesting because if you structure something like this like a product, and that's what an event like this is, right? Like it's a product, right? So like you're trying to connect users with other content, which are the speakers in the end and so forth. Everything is about acquisition lately. Everything is about,
Indeed.
making some money,
lately.
like sponsorship, and then like you have these vendor booths, and there's a lot of DJs and all that kind of stuff, and you cannot talk to each other. It seems weird to me that this is kind of what it has come to. That, and I also love that you said, like if you are sponsoring an event, you're not getting a speaker slot. Stuff like that seems to me quite important because for the visitors, it should be just, okay, they didn't buy themselves into this. The speakers are getting compensated because they want to talk about this kind of stuff. I mean, of course, I'm also getting something from these events, but it should be about the quality of the things that you put together. And then if you can really put a name to it, then that's it. And I'm not going to certain conferences anymore because of the bad experiences that I had with them in the past, neither as a speaker nor as a visitor.
As an attendee. Yeah. But I have to admit that we learned from the best because at Mind the Product, they're always really radical about splitting the sponsorship and curation track. And so do we. Plus, Arne and I are both massive community people. Arne is an organizer to Product Tank Hamburg as well. I, in my job as a product leadership coach, I love to create content for the people and share it with the people and the world. And I strongly believe in the power of communities for everybody to be the place where we can learn from and be exposed to new ideas, or where we could have moral and ethical discussions that we're usually not having while we are sitting at home in front of our desk, in front of our development teams. And therefore, we try to build a conference experience that allows people to network a lot. And it's a space that actually allows you to do so because we have plenty of outside and indoor space where people could hang out if they're not interested in all of the talks, maybe to find new product friends. And that's equally important that you meet like-minded peers than it is to be exposed to the thought leaders' ideas or other product people's ideas.
Yeah. Thought leaders is a very toxic thing at this point. I think some people just hate the word, by the way.
Which is us to some extent.
I'm not a thought leader. I'm a thought visionary. That's what I am.
That's a nice term as well.
Yeah. But okay, so let's take it a little bit more personal, maybe just back to you as well. And I would love to hear, I ask this question to everyone. What do people get wrong about you? What do people get wrong about Petra?
Oh, that's an interesting question. So what comes to mind first is not so much about me personally. It's about the work that I do. Mm-hmm. And that is that they totally think coaching, for example, helps them to finish the work that they are not able to finish. And which to some extent is true, but let me make an example. So oftentimes product leads reach out to me and say like, hey, I really need help to work on my strategy. What they mean is, can you please do a lot of the strategy work for me? And that's not what coaching is all about. What I can help them is to find out where they're blocked in their strategy work and help them to come up with action items, can follow up with them on some things, can ask the right question at the right time so that they have somebody they could pair with on that, at least on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. But what I'm not doing is actually do the work with them. So it's not so much the hand holding. And that is something that I learned over the year, that I have to be pretty outspoken about that fact, because oftentimes people have this misconception about what coaching is all about. So that is maybe one thing that I would mention.
And what about Petra, the personal or the private person? What do they get wrong about you personally?
I actually, not that I can think of any. I think it's
I have an
because of
idea.
you have an idea, but I think for me it's right. I'm such an unfiltered person. So whoever knows me, I think there is not much different between the professional on-stage personality and the backstage kind of green room personality. So Petra is always really chatty, a bit of all over the place, really high energy. Just yesterday, somebody wrote me, you are such a force. And I don't know if that's a compliment or if they kind of sometimes
It's a
overwhelmed.
compliment.
But
Yeah.
that's actually something that comes to mind when I think about, okay, they seem to don't get me wrong that often.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think, I don't know why, but I did not expect you to dance when we were joining the first call together. So
I'm
Petra
famous
was
for the
just dancing us through.
dancing.
Yeah, we're just like dancing. And I'm like, okay, we're going to get along. This is fine. This is great. That was the first call.
Ask my old engineering teams. You can ask the attendees of the
No,
conference.
I'm
There's
good.
always some dancing involved.
I love it. I love it. I'm here for it. I want to dance now too on every stream. That's fine. So your positioning right now, so you're like, the thing is, this season is about product-led growth, right? So like, and one of the things why I also wanted to talk to you about, I know you're not positioning yourself as a product-led growth expert, but the main thing about product-led growth is that it requires more and more and more from product people to do more and more and more. That it's just not just like product, right? It's sometimes also people management. You need to be more cross-functional and so forth. And this is exactly your topic. And that's why I felt like it actually fits very well in, because as I said, you're very good on the operational side. You teach others how to grow others. And this is quite interesting. And maybe also leading me now to the next question. How do you feel about the current state of product management today as a whole? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's just with the rise of generative AI, all of us know things have become so much more interesting the last few years and months, I'd say. So I think it's a great time to be in product management, unless I always thought it is, because alone from me being exposed to the clients I have been working with the last few years, I've learned tons about container shipping and running clinical trials and drug development. And so it's so many things you can learn as a product person if you're curious about the world. I think this is super good, and that is here to stay, definitely. But then with these new technologies arising, things become even more interesting because we're in such a central role. So many of the decisions that we make have way more impact than any of us would have thought. So I think it's such a nice time to be in product management. So many of the early issues that all of us had, nobody knew how to do product management well. Everybody had to figure it out. Everybody massively struggled. Some of these early mistakes have been made. There's a lot of material to learn from, which is an advantage and a disadvantage at the same time. But maybe that's something for later. But still, yeah, no, I think it's a pretty exciting time. And even in the current economic downturn or not perfect economic climate, still interesting as a framing for product people, because now maybe it's a bit harder to focus on growth, but it's still important to do so. Maybe it's a bit harder to come up with your strategy because for the first time in years, you need to focus on profitability instead of pure growth, right? But still, these kind of framing conditions help us to, yeah, think in better ways and more creative ways about the things that we actually want to achieve and about the products that we want to put out there into the world. So I think it's a super exciting time right now.
Yeah, it really is. And I think an interesting thing is that I don't know whether people really realize. I mean, I don't know whether I'm realizing it, but I don't think that everybody realizes how absolutely bananas this entire technological leap is that we're going to make now in the next 6 to 12 months, in the next weeks, like that kind of stuff. So I don't know whether they realize this, but what that means is that I think there was a book, Take Your Power Back, where she was, Deborah Lou, I think. I might have
Haven't
to
read
edit
that
this
one.
out afterwards if the name is wrong, but if not, then I'm leaving it in. But the thing is, she was raising the question as well in her career, like, do you need to have domain experience? Like, do you need to understand your product before you can work on your product? And this is a very relevant question for any machine learning product. Now, I'm a head of product at a machine learning startup.
Yeah.
I understand very little about machine learning. I'm a very technical person, but machine learning, that's beyond me. And I think this will be the situation for a lot of product managers in the future and product
Yeah,
leaders.
definitely. And we will see new roles evolve. Team structures might get, really mixed up and stirred up, and people will be put together in other, team structures. So cross-functional will be redefined, definitely. I don't know if 2-week sprints are still a good idea if you work with machine learning and AI, maybe not. So I think it has a big impact on the way how we work. So not only that we ask ChatGPT to write our backlog items, no, it will really be the team setups as well. So it will be what the products that we will be launched have an impact on the society and the
Yeah.
people out there. Yeah, it's a pretty big, maybe the biggest change that I saw throughout my career. Definitely.
Yeah, I would say so too. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because user-generated content definitely was a thing. Social media coming up and all these kind of things, definitely big. But generative AI,
Yeah,
it's frightening and exciting at the same time.
it is absolutely crazy. But hey,
Yeah.
this is why we're here. We're here to save. We're here to
Exactly.
save the world. Exactly. No, but it's going to be super exciting. And I think I really hope that it's going to lead on the bottom line to something positive. I really do. But I think we cannot imagine the future that is going to come up right now. But that's why, the state of learning as well, like how do you learn? How do you get information is not only changed since ChatGPT. This is just like also how do we grow as product managers? How do we grow as anyone else? I think product managers was one of the first professions where I just said, like, I'm not even going to look at your certificates that you had. I'm not interested anymore. I know a lot of product leaders do say the same. I don't care whether you
Indeed.
studied. I really don't care. The importance of academia for the field of product management has drastically lost significance. And yeah, I mean, I'm also running a course now on product-led growth. I'm not going to hand out any certificates. I mean, at least not. I don't know whether people want to do that. Maybe they want to put their name on this, but like this is not the
They
same.
will ask for it, Leah. They will
Okay,
ask
maybe
for
I have
it.
to do it. Sorry for everybody who participated in the course if I didn't deliver, but this is what it is. Cool. So personally, from your side, maybe an interesting question as well. Like, who has been your most important professional mentor? Who actually brought you the furthest in your product life?
Oh, that's so hard to answer. I'd say, what comes to mind when I wrote the acknowledgements for strong product people 2 years ago, it took me quite a while to really reflect on that and think about, okay, who have been the people that actually made an impact on my career? And as far as I know, the amount of people that is now in the acknowledgements is around 60 people. So it's a lot of people that influence one throughout your career, right? So it's super hard to mention one person in particular because some of them are more product people. Others maybe have been direct line managers of mine who helped
Yeah.
me. Others are others are just like folks like you who just like-minded product content creators and people that really think about a particular topic in depth and share what they have to say with the rest of the product world. So it's super hard to point into one direction, I'd say.
Okay. So you don't want to answer this. That's fine. I'll give you a selection. Okay.
Yeah. Give me a selection.
A, Leah, me. That's it. Go.
I love it. Yeah, definitely. So when it comes to product-led growth, I have to learn a ton. And I always gravitate towards your
Very
content
good.
for that particular topic.
Very good. If I can grow my product people the way that you say I should, then you can actually learn from me about product-led growth.
Yeah, that would be good. That would be interesting to have that conversation.
Yeah, we should. Okay.
That's another one we need to schedule.
You heard it here first. We're going to combine our forces for a cohort.
Yes, really I love it.
So just in general about your kind of business model, and this is something that I'm always super interested in about, like when you talk to companies or like, let's say someone like me says, Petra, these product managers, they're just not listening to me. What are the typical things that are coming up? Like, what is your business model? What is your positioning? Who do you love to help the most? Who do you love to help the most?
That's another great question, Leah. So many great questions today. So the people that I can help the most, and that's basically how I figured out the sweet spot, is people who are in a product leadership role for quite some time. So it's not the people who are currently on an IC level that want to make the next step in their career. That is not my sweet spot. So it's a product leadership person who is managing other product people, and they could include the product design team or the user research team. So they run the product organization within a company. So that's basically the people that I work, with the most often. And they have either issues with providing directional clarity to the product organization and the rest of the company. And they could be product strategy is not where it should be. They struggle to set meaningful outcome-oriented goals. They even not know about how KPIs are. I think that is something that you see a lot in your work as well, right? So nobody's measuring anything. So super hard to improve. So that is one particular thing. That's the whole directional clarity theme. And then the other theme is really the people development theme. That's like usually coming from the perspective, okay, I just have no freaking clue, Petra, how I should find the time to help my product people grow. So we need to streamline the hiring, the onboarding, and the personal development for all the people on my team. Can you help me to do that? So that's basically the two things that I'm doing with most of my clients, plus a bit of we are in an agile / digital / whatever transformation. We got stuck. Can you help us with that? Definitely something that I'm doing as well. Plus, recently I added the community of practice work to my portfolio, I'd say. So I help companies to start a community of product practice where people could learn from each other, because I strongly believe it's the cheaper way for a company to help people grow. And it's so essential to keep and attract good talent. And that's another thing that I've been doing recently.
You unfortunately said the word that triggers me, which is agile. So we're not going to get into this, but it's just like, I'm trying to unship all agile processes that we've had, because nobody really knows what's going to happen in the next 2 weeks anyways. But we still have some of them. I hope nobody listens right now from Joa, but we'll see.
Da, 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 da.
That was kind of interesting. But let's get this really more practical. So let's say there would be product managers that are asking you, like, so Petra, I'm trying to not necessarily enter product management, but like I want to position myself, or like, how do I prepare myself for what's coming right now in the industry versus to back in the days? And I just want to be ready for what's coming today. Like, how do I prepare for an industry if I don't know where I'm going to work, which is usually the nature of product management?
Yeah, learn how to learn. That is usually what my answer would be. And learning is, first of all, let me briefly walk you through 4 things. So one is we learn by consuming things about the particular topic, right? So they could go to Leah's LinkedIn profile and then read a lot about how Leah sees the world of product-led growth. Ideally, they find other people that are creating content around that topic, read that as well, and start to form an opinion. So that is usually step number 1. And then step number 2 is hopefully, and that's where a lot of people struggle with, but hopefully you're going to apply some of the things that Leah suggested and see how that's going. That's point number 3, the reflection, right? You need to make time for reflection in your learning cycle, so to say. And then last but not least, I think the contribution is essential as well. So you could either then share what you learned and what has worked well in your context with your peers and colleagues. And that could be just a Slack message, hey, Leah's content is great. Or it is kind of go to a conference and bring back the insights and share what are the best talks that you've seen and remind your colleagues why these talks might be relevant for them in their context, right? So this consuming, applying, reflecting, and contributing step, that is an important thing to build into your practice and into your busy product management calendar, because that is exactly what you need to, survive and thrive in
Yeah.
the crazy times that we are at. And that is only one thing. And then the other thing is, I think it is super important that you have a blueprint of what makes a great product person. And to get there, you could reach out to your line manager. Hopefully, he or she hopefully has an idea about what makes a great product person in their context. If not, find peers or a mentor or somebody like that, a person helping you to discover maybe your shortcomings or your white spots or things that you could learn more about or look into. So that would be my 2 tips.
Yeah, I think I like that very much. And you touched upon something really interesting. And there's like, you need to find someone that tells you about your shortcomings. That was definitely something that unlocked me hard. But you need to be also able to accept it in the sense of
Yeah.
like, yeah, I'm okay with this negative feedback and so forth. An interesting balancing act in this regard is that I had a conversation with one of my PMs actually today on this, is that if you try to figure out what you're going to do next in terms of growth, your own personal growth, right? So, like, I'm not looking for a new job or whatever, just like, okay, what can I do to become a better product manager? Question that you have to answer yourself is if you're really in love with the domain that you're working in, then you might want to become more knowledgeable in the domain that you work in so you can position
Yeah.
yourself more clearly. You know, like, I don't know, for instance, at the moment with me, it would be the weather industry or so. If you're not particularly passionate about the topic itself, but like the managing of the product and everything else, then you probably should focus more on generic product skills. And striking this balance is extremely difficult because on one hand, we expect that our product managers are the champions of the users, like understanding their domain very, very well. And then at the same time, you also need to be extremely good at creating products, bringing everything together, doing UX research, doing everything, do the synopsis, and so forth. And this feels to me like it is going to be an incredibly difficult thing for a lot of people to
Yeah,
understand.
it is. But so one tip that I could give is really like you need to give it a bit of a rhythm. Because if you, for example, define your learning headline once per quarter and then focusing on getting better with this particular topic, and then you still can decide, okay, do I want to learn something else next quarter or stick with the topic? And allocate a small time budget to learning. So maybe 20 minutes a week is already nice, right? Time box it that it doesn't become too overwhelming, because I see so many, in particular junior product folks and even people that are the first time product leads, for example, they're reading 20 books, 300 blog posts, watch 84 talks, listening to 300 episodes of podcasts, and are not applying a thing. So that is definitely something that keeps them busy and their calendar blocked. And I would always recommend find good resources. It's maybe not good to just read one book and apply it. Maybe you should surround yourself with a bit more material, because you never know if you picked the right book for your particular situation, right? But still, keep it to a small number of books, blog posts, podcasts that you consume, and really make time for the application of it and for reflecting if it helped.
Yeah, and I think the biggest problem there is the perfectionism that I see happening everywhere. So
Yeah.
people want to be perfectionists from the get-go. So like, yeah, I started to read the book, so I'm going to finish it. Well, if you don't like it, just throw it away, right? So like if you read something that you cannot apply, throw it away. I mean, you don't have to throw it away. You can put it in your bookshelf. But the thing is, as well as for me, like when people ask me like, hey, Leo, but like, so how much do you learn every day? And I'm like, well, about 2 hours. I invest 2 hours of my time because I'm not normal in my head in this regard, because no, I'm not. I know that I'm not. But like, why would you expect to be able to copy this? There's a completely different context. And it didn't start like this.
Yeah.
I started with way, way less. And I'm a habitual learner, but it takes time to develop this habit. You're not going to someone that runs a marathon and be like, I'm going to do this now next week as well, like every day. This
Not happening.
It's just not happening. And you need to start somewhere and just become comfortable with something. And 10 minutes every day is more than no minute with 3 hours planned every day, right? Like it's get something done and then just get comfortable with the process. And, this industry is not going to get easier.
No, and it's really the consistency beats intensity theme, right? So
It does.
When it comes to personal development, it's a thing.
No, for sure. In this regard, so maybe I'd like to also touch on the topic of, especially with women, because men usually sometimes have a bit problems sharing this or like with this perspective. But I was also surprised sometimes on the topic of insecurities. I think when we look at leaders and other people who are kind of inspiring, and I know that definitely a couple of people are now also looking up to me, which is weird. And I know that's the same is happening to you. And it's just like they just put you on
weird.
They just put you on a pedestal, and it's just like, look, I don't know better than you. It's just that some things, yeah, sure, like I put more time into it, and maybe in my niche, I'm also a little bit more knowledgeable, but I'm not infallible. Can we stop pretending that everybody is perfect? And this was a huge part of my own insecurities, in that I just had this picture of people on how they're supposed to be. So pretend to be perfect until you are. And now I'm just like, hey, look, I'm breaking stuff every week. I'm talking about it. I even talk about it on LinkedIn. I'm not revealing any personal information anymore, but I'm still insecure about certain things. Like if I don't hear back from someone that is really important to me, why did she not engage on this? Why did she not? This happens all the time. And I feel like it's important that we're talking about it. Do you also experience this? Because in my experience, it was always like whenever I dealt with an insecurity, I replaced it with another one that was even bigger. It's like you kind of up-level your insecurities from your friend next door to then this product leader, then to someone that is like on the world stage. Was this the same for you?
Yeah, definitely. So I still struggle, for example, with public speaking, even if people would never assume and always think like the talks are great and yada, yada, yada. But I just don't like to go on a stage and share the stuff and share my own work. So it's easier if I do it for the conference in the role of a moderator, a host. I love to host parties and have people over. So that's cool. So it's not the eyeballs that's staring at me. It's more the vulnerability of sharing my content and the stuff that I created and see if it resonates. And to some extent, I'm always doubting, or the question that I always ask myself is there something in it that really helps the people tomorrow when they're back at their desk? And is it didactically structured in a way that people are able to understand what I actually want to tell them, and that it really draws the same picture in their head that I have in my head, right? With words and maybe supported by pictures oftentimes, because I'm a great fan of drawings and sketchnoting and illustrations, right? But definitely something that I have to overcome every time somebody asks me to give a keynote or a talk somewhere. So yeah, that's just one example.
I think this is funny because sometimes in my head, I think if you're not really experienced in charging money for your own services, which I also had to learn, then usually what happens is that if you don't like doing something, it's easy for you to charge money for it, because you're just like, I don't want to put up with this.
I don't want to do it anyways.
Yeah, exactly. But like if you love it, then you're going to do, I'm doing it for free. I love it. It's fine. And that's kind of a problem, right? Because the things that we love doing most is probably also the stuff that we are the best at, in the sense of advising. I love helping people. I really do. I love being in a room and be like, hey, look, this is like,
but there's only that much time in a day.
Yes, there's only so much time in a day, and then it kind of becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. But like you definitely also gave me a data point of someone that, and this is helping me as well, right? Like of someone that just says like, no, I'm firm on this. This is what I expect. This is what I put in my term sheets. When you want me in a specific conference, this is what you're going to pay, and these are the conditions. And
yeah, by the way, that is something that all of us, I think, everybody that is currently listening to the podcast, talk about the money. That is super important to talk about it with your peers and with the people that are doing similar stuff in your company. Reach out to meetups. It's the perfect place to ask others what their product compensation is all about, because otherwise the power belongs to the ones that employ us, and let's bring that power back to some extent.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. Like, I think that to bring it back what a better product person is at some point, I think in the end, what we learn as public speakers, because I also started to do it for free at the start. I started to mentor others for free. I did also product coaching, that kind of stuff. This made me a better product manager in the end. As
Yeah,
you teach,
definitely. And it's
because
fine.
and it's fine.
Yeah.
Exactly. As
Yeah.
you teach, you become better. And then I also used it. I'm not being apologetic now when I have a new job, for instance, and say like, hey, by the way, I'm also coaching. Is that okay? I'm saying, by the way, I'm also coaching on the side. So this is on top of what you actually get from me, because
Yeah.
I have a face that is known in the industry.
Yeah, exactly. And that's your contribution bit of your learning curve, right?
Exactly. Look how much I'm
Yeah. So you're
contributing.
leading by example in your product
Oh, I have
organization. I
so
love
many
that.
examples. Yeah. They call me the example
Cool.
queen. That's just
It's
what
like
it
me
is.
being the dancing queen.
Yeah, probably. So let's maybe go into the passions topic. So you wrote a book. It's this one, by the way, for those that have a camera. This was a lot of work. You told me once the entire
Aha.
process behind it. It's insane. April Dunford told me the same. It is just so much work. You must be enjoying something about writing in this regard.
I
Otherwise, you would
do.
not do it. You also have these
I do.
very beautiful, beautiful, beautiful scribbles and illustrations on there that I think you drew yourself. So, but what is it right now that you love writing about or like talking about in general when like
Yeah.
what are you doing right now? Like you're done with the product people, right?
No, I'm not done with product
Oh,
people. I
okay,
love them.
good.
But I'm so there's another aspect of personal development, right?
Mhm.
Which the first book is all about, and that is learning from and with each other, from your peers and with your colleagues and from other people in the industry. And that's what I'm currently writing a lot about. Tons of it is already on my blog. So I interviewed 17 people last year about communities of practice, how they run their communities. So Nesrin from Google shared how she runs the European leg of the community of product practice at Google. Or Teresa Torres talked about how she set up her community of practice when it comes to continuous discovery habits, right?
Yeah.
So that's one thing that I did. And then I surveyed more than 100 people to hear what they like about the community of practice that they currently are a part of and what rituals work well and what doesn't. Plus, I added a lot of the things that I was stumbling across, and what was helpful with my clients when I'm working on setting up communities of practice or maturing
Yeah.
communities of practice. Yeah, and I decided to put all of that into books so that people can just get it on Amazon. It's more a handy guide. It will not be as thick as Strong, obviously, because Strong is really dense,
It is.
and Strong is really I think it's your travel guide if you're a product lead.
If you want to coach people on the plane, like, hey,
Exactly.
we're going to travel for 4 hours next to each other. I'm going to coach you how to be a good product
Exactly.
manager.
So that would be one use case, definitely. Yeah, no. And the next book will be just like a summary of the things that I learned about communities of practice.
Mhm.
Super niche topic. Strong already was a super niche book with people managing product people. Not so
Mhm.
many of us existing on the planet, but I still thought it's worth writing a book for these particular target group. And it's the same with communities of practice. But it's just like I'm super passionate about the topic. I see so many organizations not having any community work going on. And I think that should be actually changed for the sake of all of us. That's why I'm actually doing this. And why I'm writing, it's basically that's the way how I think. So at some point when I learn something new, I have to put it in my own words and think about, okay, is that actually really true or is it just in my head? And are there examples that could help others to understand more about that topic and all these kind of things? So that's why naturally at some point always start this Google Doc and laying out my ideas and my learnings and good. And if you read a Strong Product People, then you know a lot of further readings because I
Mhm.
don't think and believe that I'm the only person who
Yeah.
holds a certain truth. There's so many other people with great content, and I always love to bring that into the picture as well. So, yeah.
I do the same. This is so funny because I do the same now also on my course. At the last bit is like, the last part of the entire course is like, hey, here's other stuff. Like just now in
Yeah.
case, now you should have an idea where you want to go and here's how you can hone in on this. This is definitely something that I also had to learn. And not everybody is like that.
Yeah, to some extent, that's a product-led growth tactic, I'd say, to some
Yeah.
extent. Some thought leaders keep their thoughts closed and are not referencing so much
Yeah,
work of others, and others are kind of the opposite and referencing a lot of other people's work. I just think it makes product people the more competent product people if they have a broader range of things they have been exposed to.
no.
That's, I think, why I do it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. But I think, yeah, as you said, some people are just not, they're not sharing knowledge free enough. And this is also like about the reality in product management. This is why I said, it's also sometimes, it's very uncomfortable for me to share my failures and everything. But this is what's necessary because that's part of being a product manager as well. Most of the time, I'm just not correct, but that's not a
Yeah.
problem.
And plus, so the things that I can write about often are the smallest common denominator, so
Yeah.
to say. But the product world is such an it depends world. So I know nothing about your industry, the context you're currently in, the stage of
Yeah.
your company you're working, because you're the reader of my book. So I have no clue what your situation actually is. And that's another thing why I think people really need to expose to the work of several thought leaders, so to say. And then it's more like a buffet lunch. They need to go and see what works for them in their current situation, because maybe they are in a, I don't know, 40,000 people organization that are still doing safe and using mainframe computers.
Oh, you said the word safe. Here you
Sorry.
go.
Loser. No, that's just like to give one example. So how could my book be the only source
Yeah.
helping them? It's impossible. Yeah, that's why I share a lot of resources.
I think we have to be super careful about this. There's an excellent part about this in Super Forecasting by Philip Tetlock, where it's about why experts in the fields tend to have extreme opinions. Like, oh, this is the only solution for this. Oh, this is the only solution for this. And this is because extreme solutions, it's not because these experts became renowned and then they became extreme. It's just that people who have extreme beliefs tend to become popular. And the reason
Yeah.
for this is that it's just we like to have a world in order that is simple, like this is bad, this is good.
Yeah.
That's the entire fantasy genre and so forth. And
yeah, and businesses are scaling. So coaching and consultancy businesses are scaling easier if you have a really distinct opinion about things. It's just so not me.
Yeah, and I agree with this as well in the sense that it's also not me. And one of the first things that I say when I talk about product-led growth is that, by the way, it's not the best approach in the industry. It depends. Sales-led is not going to go away. It's just not
Yeah.
going to go away. So you better learn how to combine the two. Yeah, but it's the most disruptive one. Yeah, it is. Well, like only for specific markets. And then you have sales-led over there. There's a reason why salespeople, for instance, exist. And this is a thing for most topics. If you're not able to have an it depends thought on one hand, and then on the other hand, then you should not be a product manager, because this is in the end the most important thing. You should not believe in something because I say it, but because I explain it, and then you understand it, and then you say, you know what, based on this, I think she has a point. And I hope we're going to get to this point that this is actually going to happen in the end, because the knowledge should be independent from the face.
Yeah, and that's exactly so. There are various theories about personality development. For example, one model that I use a lot in coaching is the Löwinger stages of personality development. And there is actually a stage in there that says, like, at the moment, there's one moment when one could accept the fact that there's multiple realities and that these multiple realities are because of the different perspectives that people are having on the world. So it's viewpoints that actually make our perceptions, that actually make up our reality in the end. And there is a personality development stage before of that. And I haven't seen a study or research on that, but I would assume that product people always have to go through that stage and end up at this level where they accept that there is multiple realities existing in parallel. Otherwise, you can't be a product person. Would love to see that research. If somebody wants to put that together, reach out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it sounds a bit philosophical, but I'm all here for it.
It is. It's so meta.
Yeah, it's meta. Well, now every time you say it's meta, you cannot, like, you have to say not the company, just mean the metaphor.
Not the company.
Yeah, not the company.
Yeah.
So we're nearing the end. And one of the questions that I'd love to ask you as well is that I'm not sure whether you're more of a visionary in that sense, but now you have to go a little bit away from the operational side. What is a trend that you're betting on? What do you believe is going to happen in the industry that we should be aware of or whatever? Where do you think this is all going?
Pooh. Yeah, that is a really hard question. I don't know. I think so more than ever, we don't know. That is maybe something that I think will be true in some years from now. Because as said, already mentioned generative AI and what it will be actually changing in the world of product management, software development, the way how the actual interface between technology and the world actually will be changing so dramatically over the next few years that I have no clue what will be happening. Prepare for more change than ever. I think that is something. So the good old change is a constant saying, I think will be more true the next 10 years than ever. Super hard to predict. I think it could all, I don't believe in it, but still we may see it all go away again to some extent because of governments blocking things.
Yeah, well,
and
Italy already
maybe
blocked it, so it's going to go away.
exactly.
No, it's not going to go away.
So yeah, no, it's not going to go away, but still, it could be way slower than we currently think if legislation picks up and governments are waking up and all these kind of things. So basically, we don't know. What I think is here to stay is interpersonal skills, human skills, it's communication. And that will be more important than ever as well, especially if to some extent the machines take over, right? So maybe then we have more time to be humans and to celebrate and dance and laugh together, enjoy music and all these kind of things. So that's hopefully something that we will see. And yeah, then I would focus on the interpersonal skills. That is something that machines will struggle a bit longer with. So let's be more human. I think that would be my learning focus and goal.
Yeah, that's an interesting take. And I don't want to take any of the beauty of it that you just said. But I think as much as technology is now removing and making everything faker, if you want to call it that, or like making reality and the perception of it less clear, I think what it does is it will really also drive technology that makes us more ourselves in a sense, right? So like you want to make sure that I'm talking to Petra right now and not just like an AI generated bot and so forth. So we will see what's happening in the future, but it's definitely,
it will be exciting.
It's going to be super exciting. All right, Petra, we are at the end. How should people engage with you? Do you like to have people engage with you? What should they do? Where can they find you? What would you love to say?
So all the product leads on the planet. So if you're managing product people, I think one nice way is my newsletter, which is only a quarterly newsletter by design. So it's not flooding your inbox. It's just a bunch of hopefully relevant content for you every once in a while. That is, for example, a good way to stay in touch because I talk about the stuff that I write in there, the talks, and I share a ton of content that is especially useful for product leads. That's basically one good idea. And then definitely on LinkedIn, if you reach out, then let me know why. And because we both breathing humans is usually not that helpful. So it would be nice if you had a bit more about why you're reaching out. Follow me there. That's perfectly fine as well. Or come join us in Hamburg in June. It's end of June. It's lovely in Hamburg by then.
That sounds great. I was about to just say that, but you said it now as well. So yeah. Thank you very much for being on the podcast.
Thank you, Lea.
It was a pleasure.
That was so much fun.
Ciao, ciao.
Ciao.